For this week's video, I wanted to cover some Mig-19 tips and tricks for DCS multiplayer. We are going to be covering a lot of different topics today, but these are things that I think about while flying the Mig-19 in multiplayer. If this is your first time here, this channel focuses on multiplayer sim gameplay, so if you're into that, please subscribe. Now this first clip actually covers a lot of the topics I want to go over today. We will unpack each of these as we go through other examples, but let's see this play out. We saw that this F5 splashed a target, and we're coming up on him. And he's already flaring, and our missile is going to miss here, which is very common with the Mig-19 missile. The K-13 is a terrible missile, and I switched for guns, and I do not have the nose authority, and I overshoot. This is not a good place to be in. This guy is actually going to be sending a missile my way, and the Mig-19 does not have chaffs or flares, so I have to maneuver to try to beat the missile, and I do. And I think these really bad old IR missiles is actually what makes the Cold War scenario very fun to fly in, because these missiles aren't reliable, so you really have to maneuver people into a position where they can't be able to evade the missile, and it's just a very interesting element. Almost like flying warbirds. You can see here from this angle that I'm taking on this guy that I'm giving myself a lot of lead time, and I'm able to score a kill here. So there's a lot of different takeaways from this, and we're going to kind of unpack them through the other examples. But bad nose authority on the MiG-19, have to be in a certain position, and no chaffs or flares, and you can always get third party, which you saw right here. So let's go into the next example. So I want to really talk about the nose authority and how the MiG-19 fights when it comes to fighting multiple opponents at the same time. In the first example, we just saw me fighting one person. And I got third partied, but here I'm going to be really fighting many. The AWACS has been radioming in, and I am about to spot a target, which I do here. So I have good tone, but I don't really like the angle that much. I could probably hit this, but I see that he's not maneuvering too much, so I think I can get an easy gun skill here. Giving a lot of lead, and I'm able to get a good burst and to take his wing off, which is great. So I'm looking around. I know the AWACS was calling out a lot of different targets, and I'm spamming it right now to see where they are. Keeping my eyes open. If they shoot an IR missile at me with the radar off, I need to see it come in. And there's the second F5, and I turn into him immediately. So what I'm thinking here right now is he turned toward me, and I want to turn into him to get into his face. And then I immediately go into the vertical. And what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to exhaust his F5. That plane is generally pretty underpowered, so I'm going to try to take the vertical every time. And I think here he made a really big mistake by going vertical, because I'm going to be able to catch him in this. Now, instead of following him down, my plan here is to hold a perch and to build more of an energy bank. And then what ends up happening was I saw another F5 coming up behind me, so now I'm fighting two at the same time. And I don't really have the nose authority to be able to pull into that, and I don't want to, even if I could, I would probably slow myself down too much. So I'm trying to take these vertical fights while I still have the time, because the second F5, I know it's going to take him a while to get around me. And unfortunately I lose him in the ground clutter because I'm trying to keep my eyes open for the second guy. Now, the point I want to make here is that because you lack really accurate missiles, because you have so little cannon ammo, you have to really make your shots work, and you don't have the nose authority to make like snapshots really easily. And a lot of your fighting is like this, where I'm doing a loop, I'm trying to exhaust him, like I need him to lose all his energy, so he's kind of like a sitting duck for my missile. And the fight was going well for me, I guess, in the first one, but it just took me a long time to try to slowly lean on him and pressure him, and that basically has allowed for a third target to come in, and now the situation's gotten very hard. Again, I can't shoot at that angle with that missile, I probably would miss. This guy fires a missile, and he hits me. So the takeaway here, again, is that it's hard to end fights really quickly in the MiG-19, so keep that in mind. So let's look at another example of where I'm fighting multiple, and let's see what happens if I take a different approach. So I know in this AO there's a lot of enemy planes. We have some friendly ones also, but I'm going to try to do more boom and zooms, and you're going to see kind of how this develops. So this is an F5 in front of me. He was shooting at MiG-21. Missile's not able to, I can't really hold tone, so I go high. And by the way, while I come over the top, just shout out to the Persian Gulf guys that made this map, because I think this is probably one of the best maps for Cold War, because it's so easy to see stuff. So coming down on this guy, going really fast, and he's turning quite hard, and you can just tell that I'm trying to get the nose up, and you're gonna see something very special here. The moment that he saw me, and you can just see how much he was able to jerk his nose up in comparison to me. I was already pulling back as much as I could, and the F5 has such great nose authority that he got out of the way really quickly, and I didn't want to overshoot, so I went very vertical to try to stay behind him. I didn't want him to nose up to shoot a missile off of me, so I made sure to stay like a little bit behind him. Now I know he knows that I'm around, and I'm almost trying to play this like I'm a 109 with boom and zoom tactics. So I'm missing the merge, and again I'm going to vertical. I'm going to use the great thrust to weight ratio of the MiG-19, and my plan here is to keep making passes and to keep pushing him down. All he has to do is to just basically keep pulling hard, and he's going to evade my attacks, and if I fly smart like this and keep coming down on him, I'm going to eventually push him down to treetop level, and then he's just going to have no energy left, and it should become easier. The issue is that I know there's a lot of enemies around, so I'm trying not to get caught. I saw that he already started to preemptively turn, so I stay on my perch, and then I come down on him again. I don't want to take on these head-on merges, because I don't want to get blapped in the face. You can see, just don't have the nose authority, can't pull the angle. And I can see that he's starting to lose a lot of energy because he stalled out there pretty quick. So now I'm starting to feel thirsty. I'm starting to feel like this fight is really going to my favor. Also, to my luck, we're starting to fight into a mountain, so he doesn't have as much altitude relative to the actual ground. And because I started to press my advantage, I got much lower. So now I'm thinking, okay, I need to extend a little bit and play this a little bit safe. And then we have a secondary guy that comes in and a missile, so I'm forced to start moving. And we have a third. So went from a 1v1 that I was winning to now to a 3v1 where these guys are right on me and I'm starting to run. So what's going through my head right now is, how do I get away? And I want to use the acceleration of the MiG-19 to get away. The issue is that these guys are already pretty fast, and the F5 has a top speed higher than the MiG-19. It just doesn't accelerate as quickly, and these guys are pretty much on it, but they're maneuvering. So I'm feeling like I can build some separation from them, but I need to be careful because I don't want to get ran down, so I need to keep doing these jinks. But as this plays out, let's think back to how I got into this situation. I was taking a fight at a very conservative level, and then right when I started getting thirsty, I started to apply more pressure, and then I immediately got caught by other people. So just gotta play safe sometimes. I feel like I have outran most of these guys. They've given up, and there's one guy that's really stuck to me. You can barely see him, and I felt a little uneasy here. I thought about maybe taking him vertical. What I should have started doing right here is to actually start maneuvering a lot more. He's at his top speed, so I'm not going to get away from him. So if I would have started to really aggressively maneuver and then throwing in some verticals, I would have started to tire him out, and then I would have been able to build up a little bit of distance, because once we maneuver, we're both going to lose energy. I have more acceleration than he does, so I'm going to get my energy back faster than he will, and then that'll allow me to get away, and then maybe I can start climbing, and then I could have maybe worked with that. But here, I just kind of stayed straight, and then I ended up getting hit. And in DCS, like one hit is pretty much it's over. It's almost a miracle that I didn't immediately die. And here's the moment where I decide, okay, I'm going to start really maneuvering. The issue is that there's a fourth one that came that has more missiles, and I have no chance. The takeaway is that if you end up having to run away from F5s, especially multiples, is you have to maneuver. If you don't maneuver, you're not going to have them get down below their top speed. You need them to lose some energy. And when you start to extend away, you're going to get your top speed faster than they will, and then you can work with that. If you just stay straight, kind of like I did, and decide to maneuver a little bit too late, you're just going to get blasted. In this example, we're going to talk about missiles and maneuvers that are based around nose authority, and why counting missiles are important. So I'm coming up on an F5, and he clearly doesn't see me. And I'm going to consider this actually a very lucky shot, because I think he actually saw the missile coming. And even despite all of that flaring, I actually did hit him, which is great. And you'll see that I have a habit of looking over my shoulder after I shoot, which is a very good habit to have, because I see someone else behind me. And because I was able to see him, I was able to dodge his missile. So I am in a sticky situation. He's behind me. He's flaring for some reason. And I knew I was going to make this video. So in this fight, I decided that I was going to fight it a little bit differently to see if I could make something work, which I knew wasn't a great idea. But I think it really drives the point home, which is basically trying to scissor in the Mig-19. So I'm able to get behind him. This looks like a good missile shot, and it just so barely misses. And I have now used both my missiles. He has used one. And we see that in the nose authority, I can't get my guns on. He has one missile left, which I did see. That's why I zoomed in on his wings. So in most cases, I would have gone like more vertical and stuck with him. But I'm actually trying to take this fight to be more horizontal, because I actually wanted to practice a scissor against this guy. But let's see how this plays out. So look, I'm going to start to scissor into him. And I want you to notice, like, just watch my nose and his nose and how much more he can pull. Like, here we are, like, kind of in a flat scissor now. Now, in most circumstances, I would think if I was flying like a 109, like, oh, I can get a snapshot off here. But watch on the top left of the screen. He actually just is able to pull into it so much more than I can. And I realize this, that I'm losing this scissor, and I know something is going to have to change. This is also scary too, if you're trying to scissor in a Mig-19, because like your plane is so large, you're so easy to hit. So this is where I decided, okay, this has to change. I'm going to extend. We're both kind of slower, so I'm going to burn away and give myself some options. But we know that he has one missile left. So even though I was advocating earlier to use your acceleration to extend, you also have to remember that the missiles are very fast. And we see here that even with my maneuvering, I still get hit by a missile. So you have to keep that in mind. I think flying the MiG-19 is great. I think it's actually probably my favorite. Actually, it definitely is my favorite Cold War airplane. But there are just some tricky things about it that you need to be careful with. It doesn't have flares or chaff, so you need to have enough space, speed to be able to maneuver to dodge missiles. You don't have a lot of cannons, so you don't have a lot of nose authority, so you just can't make shots happen. You can't spray. Like, you have to be very accurate. Your gun sight sucks, so it's just not easy. Yes, you always have the vertical. Yes, you accelerate very quickly, but when you start fighting multiples, it can get pretty hairy. So just keep these things in mind. When you're working in pairs, it's so much more easier to take on multiple opponents. There's a great video, which I'll link on the top right, where Tempest and I were flying MiG-19s and be really cleaned up. But I just wanted to throw these considerations out there for you guys to think about. It's a great, fun plane, but it definitely has some limitations, and you have to fly within those. If you found this video helpful, please consider subscribing, and I hope you guys have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you.